Well, hi there, friends. This is Robert of MayflowerBookshop.com. And today I'm wearing my astrology hat. And I want to share with you a new comet. It was discovered January 3rd, 2021, and reaches its perihelion, its closest point to the sun, before it disappears completely, on January 3rd, 2022, coming up. And we're really starting to feel it in mid-November, and it should become visible and maybe a bit of a show, to look at as we enter mid-December or maybe before. And this comet is called Comet Leonard. Because I'm kind of theosophically, mystically, Buddhist, Christian, astro-theological shaman in a way, I'm not sure what name to give me, but I've studied astrology for many a year. And also I love the poetic, artistic side of astrology. It's scientific, and, nobody can really predict the future. You're kind of predicting possibilities. And from a scientific base, you're talking about moving bodies that influence the stars and planets and comets influence us and sometimes try to impel us maybe, but out of the free will we have, and that human beings are kind of separated from our oneness with Mother Nature, trying to find an inner spirit oneness with all life and humanity, and a unique expression of it in our outer personality. So you can see that I'm in a bit of a tradition of the old astrologers, ie.LEO and Carter, and the Hermetic, Neoplatonic philosophers and astrologers, and Mark Edmund Jones, Dane Ruger, and have had many a friend in the past of the modern day astrologers, such as Robert Hand, Ray Merriman, many. So Sassoportis is a great one. So what I want to share with you is that this comet is coming in, and it's coming from Ursa Major. The comet is coming in from over our heads. After pondering it for a little bit, number of days off and on, I think that this comet is a spiritual messenger from the spiritual hierarchy. It's like a message from the archangels. The personal angel helps guide each one of us. We each have an angel or a Socratic daimon, Sutra soul or daemon. We have, my dog said that's probably true. But he still wants more information. Okay. And we have like this comet coming in from Ursa Major, coming in from the top of our planetary system. And yeah, he's excited about it too. My first spiritual teacher thought that the cats are a mirror or reflection, metaphor, symbolic of our feelings and emotions, and that the dog is symbolic of our lower mind. And my dog is definitely excited to either go outside or move faster than I'm moving. And but I'm trying to slow it down for you. Okay, so let's try again. The comet Leonard, I'd like to call it Leonard just for myself. I think that outwardly and publicly it's Comet Leonard, and it was discovered January 3rd, 2021. It's reaching its perihelion in January 3rd, 22 at around 13 Capricorn, which opposes the United States sun exactly, and triggers into this whole thing of we need a higher spiritual message. We need an intuitive, holy, godlike Christos message from the archangels representing what people call the mystical body of Christ, or the Buddha nature, the compassion, the warm heart and compassion. And because it's in Capricorn, you can't help but think that this comet is bringing in a spiritual message to the leaders of the world to wake up to a higher calling, a calling to the spiritual soul within each person to contribute to the betterment of all the earth, and not try to hide out with power over others, and not trying to hide out with scapegoating and projecting, and that there's this enemy, but to really take up the Sermon on the Mount of the true Christian, to really take up the Mahayana virtues of the Buddhist, to really take up the shamanistic and native peoples of all time in history that want to love the earth and be part of the earth and co-creative with the whole of life and humanity, the whole of life and the future destiny of the earth. And these aren't just words, these are callings to us. So because words aren't working these days, things and events just take place, and that we can either get ahead of the eight ball, so to speak, or we can have the wisdom of foresight and position ourselves in a more holy, spiritual, virtuous, practical, common sense, like Thomas Paine way, like a more Christ-like way, like more Buddha compassion for all who lives, and the wisdom to maneuver and guide ourselves so that we cause less suffering, and we can help not only alleviate suffering, but to awaken a more co-creative peace in the world. This is what I think. And so I'll try to keep to the facts here and let you ponder and meditate what you think. This comet is very unusual. It has an 80,000 year cycle. So half that cycle, 40,000 years, it's been coming our direction, according to our modern scientists who have been evaluating it. And astrology is like kind of a science art. As I mentioned in my very thick astrology book, Astrological Aspects of the Art, where I try to reveal astrology as a science, but also an art and a system that's trying to put together all the religions that wish for love and loving kindness and compassion and truth, of the true nature of the self and a truth that holds all of us. Originally, the seven liberal arts, the highest of the seven liberal arts, introduced by Capella, was that mother astrology. They were all female. All the seven liberal arts and sciences were all female goddess wisdoms, and the highest of them was the mother astrologia. So the comet is discovered January 3rd, 2021, and it has a nice relationship at that point to Venus in Sagittarius rising alone pre-dawn. And also, when Venus is in Sagittarius at the discovery of the comet rising in the morning, it means that this comet has something to do with reevaluating Sagittarius, a higher intelligence to Venus love. Now, Venus is considered theosophically by H.P. Blavatsky in her Isis Unveiled and Secret Doctrine book that Einstein and Gandhi and Martin Luther King read, that it's a very esoteric book and talks about a little bit of everything, of every religion, philosophy, and science, and space as the last frontier, inner space. And Venus is associated with the Lords of the Flame. It's a metaphysical, mystical kind of way of saying it, It's artistic, that the Lords of the Flame came to humanity and gave us intelligence. So is it possible that this comet, having been associated with this timing, is coming in to bring us a higher intelligence of love and loving kindness and warm heart and compassion for all who suffer, compassion and the wisdom to help guide each of us individually, as from the Spirit individually, and collectively with our concern over the earth. Guide us to awaken a more fuller participation, intelligence, and loving kindness to the whole of our life and to each other and the future destiny of the earth. This January 23rd, 2021, also Jupiter and Saturn are still within 3 degrees of Aquarius. So this comet has something to do with a messenger of the Aquarian Age that's coming, what we need to do to enliven each other and the planet. Venus is squaring Neptune, so it's important not to have false love ideals that are dreamy and idealistic, and not have Thomas Paine's common sense or Ben Franklin's common sense or the common sense of any of us that make the highest ideals work practically in our life. And also the sun in Capricorn was in relationship to the in the moon in Virgo, which was trining Uranus. And that is indicative of a higher calling to our emotions and people finding better work that doesn't wound their soul and hurt them inwardly, work that satisfies the inner hunger for life. I think that's very real. And also the Mars square Pluto, Mercury, Saturn at that time reflects a huge tension of what is right and wrong, and this political, economic feuding and religious, spiritual impulses being caught up with politics and economics, and that freedom of culture and art, the freedom of spirituality is getting a little lost. Individuality that represents spiritual collective oneness and wholeness is getting a little lost. And there's too much infighting and scapegoating and projecting negativity rather than living the life to prove ourselves, to live some kind of higher virtuous, ethical life for the future. I mean, Aristotle thought that morality was based on the past, and living an ethical life, such as Rudolf Steiner points out in his How to Know the Higher Worlds and Its Attainment, that you can find for free. If you don't want to buy the book at Mayflower Bookshop or somewhere else, you can find it for free on Rudolf Steiner Archives, and Rudolf Steiner audio. You can listen. And this whole idea of Mars squaring Pluto, Mercury, Saturn is the need for each of us to garden and have a relationship to the garden of friends and the garden in our backyard, and to protect each other from so much negativity. That violence breeds violence. Martin Luther King Jr. said that, and so did Gandhi. And that peace brings peace, and love brings love. And so we have this comet coming in from the highest point of where Draco and the mind and the little bear, from the Ursa Major Great Bear, like the mother bear and Sophic wisdom of Isis, Sophia, Mary, is coming through this comet. Rudolf Steiner points out that the comets have this kind of holding back, whereas the moon is a more fuller expression of like the male impulse. The comets can be the wisdom of the female, the great mother. It's like Demeter has lost a part of her soul into the underworld and is trying to redeem it, and is complaining by turning the earth into a wasteland and getting the attention of the gods or the higher virtues to come help to redeem the fallen part of our soul that's fallen into the Mary Magdalene areas, or the animal appetites, and versus the angelic virtues. There's a different virtue for every chakra to open it. I mean, for you esoteric, metaphysical inclined folks. And Rudolf Steiner talks about that in How to Know the Higher Worlds, how to have a different, and the Tibetan Buddhists talk about it as the Mahayana Prajna Pyramidas that's in the Voice of the Silence, which I've given a bunch of talks on, but she talks about it too, and so the Tibetan Buddhists, about the virtues that are the 7 steps, the 6 or 7 steps, the 6 steps of virtue that unite with the mother Mahayana Prajna Pyramida mother virtues, the mother virtue of selfless learning and emptiness practice. So let's be practical here, Robert. And January 3rd is going to be the perihelion. And here we have an invocation of the hero and the sense of brotherhood, sisterhood with all life, the sense of higher learning, educating the poor, the inwardly poor, the spiritually poor, educating to rise up. Mars in 14 Sag is the planet you see before the dawn. I mean, right below the horizon, right pre-dawn, you see Mars. And Mars is known as the Michaelic force. Like you have Sophia wisdom of the divine feminine, especially as a messenger in the comet. And you can read about comets with Rudolf Steiner, and many other anthroposophists would be glad to share interesting ideas about comets. But this is Mars now on January 3rd versus Venus in pre-dawn at the discovery of the comet. This is Mars rising in the early morning before dawn, seen above the horizon. And Mars is not only the hero, but it's the Michaelic urge for cosmic intelligence. We need not only an earthly, materialistic, scientific intelligence, we need the spiritual intelligence of our higher intuitive and the planetary stellar rhythms of our creative, artistic, spiritual, cultural impulses, the freedom of thinking that can aspire to higher dreams and aspirations and intuitions that can be practically incarnated in our daily life. And I think that Mars represents, on a higher level, this Michaelic courage for the truth and to be a hero in our own life, to be healing and helpful to ourselves and others in this genuine ethical way that promotes a better future. Aristotle thought that the past was based on, morals are based on the past. Once you have your story and it's over, you get the moral of the story. You have the moral of the story, and then you learn something from the past. Whereas ethics are, how can we live for a better future? See, so ethics was thought to be something that would open up our future. And I think that this comet is something that's opening up a new future. And the January 3rd perihelion indicates this need to have courage for higher truth and to give freedom to others to think about things and to act in their own way without hurting each other, that we can share without robbing each other or thwarting each other's freedom, that we can have courage to do an act, but it shouldn't impede others' freedom. And so some of the difficulties are this complexity that I'm bringing up, along with the moon conjunct Venus. So the moon conjunct Venus really drives home this message of love, because Pluto and then Saturn, and then Jupiter. So Venus and Saturn and Pluto are wedged between Jupiter and Venus. So I really think this comet is bringing in a message of a higher love, compassion, loving kindness, and warm heart of understanding and patience and perseverance and persistence, and birthing in the sense that all of our suffering is the labor pain of yet a higher birth from the womb of our heart. And it's in our heart that cosmic and spiritual intelligence meets our everyday common need and work and in daily life. And so also on January 3rd perihelion 2022, the sun is close to trining Venus. So you have this practicality with Capricorn sun and Uranus in Taurus, willing to make common sense practical changes from this higher authority of our own intuition and spiritual intelligence individually and collectively. Uranus is still close to squaring Saturn, which it comes up to around Christmas, with a Venus-Pluto then too. So around the solstice and Christmas, until we get into the new year, we really have dramatic conclusions to whatever's happened to us since the discovery of this comet in 2009 and what's taken place over the last year comes to many a conclusion. And of course, comets are known for coming in with new intelligence and new births, whether it's people who are born or people who are born into their etheric or astral body or their intellect body or their soul intelligence and feelings and their consciousness soul of the world participating, individual and collective participating with a higher sense of value and ethic in the world, and in invocation of the higher Trinity, whether you call that Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Osiris, Isis, Horus, or Hermes. It's really the universal thinking, the universal mind, the nous of Plato, the Christos of the Greeks, and Krishna of India. It's really the universal love, compassion, kindness, and a universal truth that holds us all. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that this is really a great comet. It's going to have really key moments that will wonderfully affect us all. And it's interesting how this comet plays into everything in timing. Because December, if I'm right, that one of the great charts to use for the United States of America, Ben Franklin was a great astrologer, and Jefferson studied it too. Many people, all the great cathedrals, the Christians, all the great cathedrals of Europe have the astrological signs of the zodiac usually in their rose window, 12 signs of the zodiac. And they're often astronomically and astrologically aligned. And one can see this if you look into it. I've given little bits of talks on it. But if we use the United States chart with Sagittarius rising, that our whole gift to the world is higher learning and a willingness to learn, if things don't work out, to keep learning until they do. And on the 11th and 12th of December, Jupiter, if I'm right about the Sagittarius rising as being an important chart, Jupiter's going to conjunct the moon in Aquarius. I think we're going to experience a big chunk of the Aquarian Age and humanitarian endeavors that are not just throwing money at people, although sometimes that's necessary, but educating people bottom up and top down. And that breathing, in my understanding of yoga breath, is that you let your breath out and you breathe in the Celtic tradition, bottoms up to your heart. We raise the animal nature to the heart, and we breathe in the highest spiritual truths over that we're all in over our head, wishing we had God on our side. We're all in over our head, wishing that the sun over our head would come around the halo of, it would shine in our head of thinking, spiritual thinking, and join our heart. So when we breathe in, we're breathing top down into our heart and bottoms up so that we can be still in our heart to birth the Christ in us, the Buddha in us, the higher self, the divine virtues that can allow us to go on to be a real human being, as above, so below, meeting in our heart. And this Jupiter conjunct the moon is going to give quite a collective consensus. Now, the danger is just throwing money, but when you create jobs and you help the infrastructure, and we reach out to converse with world leaders in a humanitarian way of education and sharing knowledge rather than like having power through each other, not over each other. And this new way of breathing. So I wanted to really talk about this, like this November 12th, 11th, 12th on, how the comet is going through, Virgo and Libra and Scorpio and Sagittarius and enters Capricorn. This is a big rush. This comet is moving really fast, faster than normal comets. It's an 80,000 year cycle. And it's like, I wanted to talk about how fast it's like. Somewhere I have a note on that. We'll get to it when I find it. But I want to say that some really important dates. The comet is moving at the speed of 70 kilometers a second. And that's 6 kilometers faster than last year's Neowise, if I understand it correctly. And the Earth itself has been spinning faster these last several months. If you've been keeping track of this peculiar science, the Earth is actually spinning faster, and if it keeps doing it, it would change the clocks in our timing. And so it doesn't this comet is moving really fast too, straight down from above down. Imagine your higher self comes down and just gives you new orders of what your life should mean and how to be directed. And I think that that's what's kind of happening. When we get to December 6th, the comet is near Arcturus at 25 Libra, Arcturus. And I think December 6th is this higher knowledge. Like in esoteric theosophy and Alice Bailey's Lucis Trust Foundation, Manly Hall, many people think that our intelligence came in the third of 7 steps, of which we're on the 4th earth in the 5th step in our intellect, in this, and of that 7, we're in this 6th, going into the 6th Aquarian Age, of some kind of understanding of the Aquarian Age and humanity at our heart level, and world intelligence at our intellect level, and materialistically we're kind of dumbfounded. And I think there's some kind of awakening of individuals and the collective humanity wherever you're at, that is happening during this whole period of time, mid-November to especially as we get into December. And December 6th is like this reminder. As we get to December 12th and 13th, the comet gets very close to Earth, and you would think that we would see with the naked eye a lot of visibility of the comet, most likely a magnitude 4 or something, I'm not sure. And it's very close to Earth, and that this whole relationship of Earth and the Sun at 21 Gemini and 21 Sag is like, again, heavy-duty communication. It's going to really take a stillness meditation to be able to ascertain and receive these. It's going to take purification of our astral body and purification from our normal desires and fears to really attune ourselves that God is trying to talk to us through one of her messengers, if you want to put it that way. In my latest view of God, I remember I was friends with Christopher Hitchens, who wrote a book called God is Not Great. But I was also friends with the Dalai Lama. And Tibetan Buddhism believes that there's not a personal anthropomorphic God. Blavatsky thought that God is space, the last frontier, that it's inner space. It's a stillness that always was, is, and will be. And that stillness within us digests our experience, our own personal stillness. If we hold still and listen and look, can digest our experience and distill our experience into the elixir of wisdom and insight into who we are and what we're supposed to be doing to make love to our friends and happiness, a higher love, compassion and creativity and artistic and peace with ourselves and the world around us. I think that Christopher Hitchens, he didn't believe in God, but he totally believed that God is love, like it says in the New Testament. The ye are gods in becoming kind of implies that the word gods in Neoplatonism wasn't God. It wasn't an ego trip. It was developing ethics and virtues. That the gods in becoming are virtues in becoming because it makes us God-like or Christ-like or Krishna-like or Buddha-like. A certain purity of willing to learn if things aren't working and not taking everything personally. Forgiveness wasn't just forgiving ourselves that we didn't see what was coming, but for means future. I've said this to Marianne Williamson a number of times personally, and we have a little bit of debate about it. She's really into forgiveness, and she's got a unique take on it. The miracles are being here now and showing up. A miracle can really happen. And for means future. So I think forgiveness is that we're willing to work anew into the future with our highest self and our most peaceful stillness. So as the comet comes close to Earth on December 12th, 13th, we should be able to see it inwardly and not just be looking for it outwardly. We don't need to go see it outwardly. We need to have the fire of the human heart re-spark and reimagine, re-inspire, and intuit who I am and where did I come from, and where am I going? Now that is December 12th, 13th. December 14th, the comet is 14.7 degrees from the sun and may bring a 2 magnitude. It might be very visible, but the point I'm making is that our heart needs to have an intelligence. Our heart has to awaken with how to think. Our head is letting us down, and our actions are letting us down. And we need a heart that can reimagine our thinking and our will and our activities. And so these are important dates, give or take a few days or give or take a week. You might see it right on the day that something, be open to divine intervention within your own life to make this world a better place. December 15th is the possible maximum brightness according to the astronomers, but we need to have that brightness. We need to be bright. We need to shine with a new sparkle that enters the room. We need to hang out with every spiritual person we can and learn whatever we can to bring back to our personal life and to share with the world. So after January 3rd, this 40,000-year inbound comet and this hyperbolic curve trajectory is going to leave forever. This is like a one-time comet. Nobody knows if we're ever. It's like a messenger from the gods, I think. And it rivals Comet Kohatek and any other comet we've seen in our lifetime. This is a major comet, and it's a wild card. It's not like Halley's Comet, where Mark Twain was born and he predicted he'd go again, and he died a natural death and went with Halley's Comet. This isn't like that kind of thing. This is like, hey, kids, wake up. Here's like a really important message, and we knew you were going to be in trouble. We knew you were going to be in trouble 40,000 years ago, if not 80,000 years ago. And here's a message from the divine proclivity. Because in my point of view of God, God is the unknowable, beyond thinking and thought and feeling. God is the oneness that holds us all. And when we're all one, there's no separation. It's non-dual. When we're really one with our life, when we're one with our food or our lover or our drink of wine or our drink of water, or when we're one, there is no separation. So it's like almost like a primordial darkness. One could go to sleep. One could experience a divine happiness and oneness and bring it back into our daily life. But once, like, there is no karma with the divine stillness and oneness. But once we move, the God of the universe is karma. The Christ is the Lord of karma now, according to Rudolf Steiner. But it's also the Divine Mother, that all that matters, our relationship to all that matters, past, present, and future, and all that's moving and dies and gets born again, the Divine Sophia, really. The Divine Feminine is really the wisdom of all time, past, present, and future. Was, is, and will be. And to lift that veil of illusion that we're not part of everything, past, present, and future, is the modern day task of the Divine Sophia. And so this comet is like something that's very inward and doesn't fully emerge into the outer world. It's something we have to kind of hold our breath for a little bit, or let off our breath out and breathe in, and really be seated in our heart of stillness to look at everything that's going on, and that everyone, we have to learn to love our enemy, as Jesus said. I mean, really, the Christians that live the Sermon on the Mount are the real Christians. And, 3 wise men followed the star to Isis, the virgin of ancient Egyptian mythology and legend, myth, reality. And the Isis virgin gives birth to Hermes, or Horus, known as the Good Shepherd. Writes the divine Pymander, the Good Shepherd, goes to the temple at 12. The 3 wise men follow the star to that birth of Hermes, who's known as the Good Shepherd, and writes the Sermon on the Mount. There's a Sermon on the Mount where virtue overcomes non-virtue. And it rivals, for sure, the Sermon on the Mount of the Christians. I mean, there's a spiritual truth in every age that takes different shape. All of us are artists and scientists experimenting with how do we create love and friendship and community and real family, that everything's part of our family. The community is really the insects and nature and the water and the air and the birds and the animals. And we're destroying the very foundation. The angels that sacrificed their bodies so intelligence could fly high in the rhythms of the planets and stars, they long ago in history, when the angels sacrificed their bodies to form the earth and the water and the air, the stone and minerals and the plants and animals. And then finally the human being appears on this form in the fourth earth we're on now with 3 to go. And that we reincarnate, and karma is the Christos, Lord of karma. That karma is to dharma adjuster, that karma just tries to attune everything so that we can get back in line individually with our at one-ment. It's not atonement for acting out of separateness or sin. It's at one-ment, becoming at one again and rising to the occasion. And each of us making our unique contribution to beautifying this world and making it good, true, and beautiful, like Plato and the Neoplatonists talked about. So the divine Sophia is this Comet Leonard is the divine Sophia coming straight from the top, straight down through the crown of our head, straight into our heart. At the January 3rd, the sun is the heart of the solar system that has bestowed upon us a spark of intelligence in the virgin stillness of our heart. And this is the myth of the divine immaculate conception. It's not like stuck with a physical body, but you can go that way if you like. But it's really that divine story of the Virgin Isis and the Virgin who gave birth to Krishna and the cosmic Buddha and Mithras and Adonis, the virgin birth of Athena or Artemis. I mean, come on. This is something that each one of us has a right to experience. In Christian terminology, when you go to any of the Christian churches, after Jesus dies, he reappears as Mary Magdalene thinks it's the gardener. He's in the etheric resurrection body. And Mary meets in the upper chamber with the 12 apostles, with the new apostle. And there's a descent of fire from above coming down. That's one fire. The Kundalini is a fire that rises from below, and many people can feel that. But this is a Kundalini that comes, this comet is a Kundalini that comes from above down into the heart, the sun. The heart is the earth, by the way. The heart spells earth. The heart is the wisdom of the body and earth. And there's, in The Voice of the Silence, H.P. Blavatsky talks about the third Kundalini, not the arousal from below up to kindle the warmth of our third eye and loving kindness and spiritual insight, but there's that there's a fire from above down that rains down on Mary and the 12 apostles in the upper chamber of the head, that then descends into their stillness of their heart to go out and preach, or not preach, but share the good news of enlivening with the Christos and our Holy Mother. But the Voice of Silence speaks of this Mother Kundalini of the cave of the heart. And this is coming into action when the comet passes the earth. And when it comes close to Venus, on the 18th, this is a remarkable day because the comet has this relationship to Venus and bringing love together with boldness in Mars of the courage of Michael. So the Sophia with Michael is coming to share in our heart the reawakening of the return of the Christ in the etheric. Or you could say it's the return of the Lord Maitreya, his messenger, his student. There's a lot of ways to put it, but we can only prove it by our actions. There is no God unless we prove it by our actions. And again, I'm saying these kind of strong ideas that I've cultivated over 50 years of Mayflower Bookshop and studying esoteric philosophy and hanging out with everyone I could that I could learn from And one thing I've always done is share whatever I discovered with everyone. And used to be on the Howard Stern radio show for about a year, and J.P. McCarthy across the country, and WJR, and Mark Scott, and other radio shows all over the country, sharing these esoteric ideas of yoga, vegetarianism. Not that you have to do any of that, but we could, if you're free, you can experiment with new ways of learning that you can add. These spiritual ways of every religion can add to your religion and to your belief. That's what we're looking for now, because it seems the world's in trouble. And when Venus conjuncts, comes closest to the comet, when the comet comes closest to Venus, who knows, maybe it's Venus, maybe the comet's holding still, and our galaxy and solar system and supergalaxy are moving us closer to the comet. I think Rudolf Steiner said that once, and it really flipped me out, if I understood him correctly. Maybe the most alive part of us is what's holding still, and we just have to grow close to it. In astrological history, only 5 comets came this close to Venus. This comet Leonard. I say Leonard because I think the Leo, his name's Leonard, but the Leo part of it, the Leo we are. And the D at the Leonard, the D is duh. It's like A, B, C, D, that we're going to manifest our heart's Leo sun. That's what's going on a mystical, shamanistic, theurgy level. On an astrological, religious level, it's the messenger of the Christos. And Venus is originally the lords of the flame that bestowed upon us on the 3rd earth level of 7, our intelligence. And when we get to around December 18th and the solstice, we have this most holy time of re-invoking our spiritual intelligence, and that our head and our heart can finally work together as 2 wings of our soul, and that we can invoke that to enter into our actions and will, because Earth is the proving ground where we have to prove by the way we live that our spirituality can help ourselves and the world around us. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime comet. It's almost like the winter solstice, Christmas time comet. You can count like, the solstice, December 21st to the 22nd's one day, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30, 31, January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So this is going to be a strange winter solstice, because the 12 days of Christmas now become, the 12 days of the solstice become the 13 days. Like 13 is associated with the 12 lunar months of the year. You can look from solstice for 13 days to January 3rd perihelion, and you can see the Sophia calendar of the year in the 13 lunar months that are coming. And if you take a journal and take notes of the 13 days from the winter solstice on the 21st of December to January 3rd, when the comet perihelion takes place, if you really look at that and take notes of every day, it will probably, if you can look at it and reinterpret it like you would a dream, or come and talk to me or somebody, you could probably see how your next year is being predicted by what happens and how you behave and how you meditate and your yoga and your perceptions and your world conceptive heart. What happens those 13 days may invoke your coming year. I do have quite a long, interesting thing to share about the solstice for 4 days. From the solstice to Christmas, these 4 days are recapitulation, theosophical, Rosicrucian, anthroposophical wise. Solstice to Christmas is a recapitulation of the renewal of our physical, etheric, astral, and ego body. And that spiritual initiatory knowledge takes place when our ego or our soul can be a mediator, meditating as above, so below. Human, know thyself. That the soul becomes the intermediary, the triple soul, sentient, intelligent, consciousness soul, is the intermediary between the thinking, feeling, and willing, and the universal mind, universal love, universal truth of the Atma Buddha Manas, or Father, Son, Holy Ghost, or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. And so when we have solstice to Christmas, it's a renewal and a recall of the Earth, Sun, Moon evolution and Earth, the birth of the Christos within our egoic reincarnating ego heart. And then the 12 days of Christmas, December 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 30, 32, that's January 1st, January 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Now this is complicated because originally the meeting, the three wise men followed the star to find the virgin birth of the Jesus who will become the Christos from baptism to death and resurrection. And three wise men followed the birth of this higher self in the heart of the Virgin Sophia, Isis, Mary. And that's on the January 6th where the three wise men find the baby Jesus. And it's also the day where Jesus is baptized. And it was the day that was celebrated. This baptism was originally celebrated much more. I mean, it was celebrated first before they picked the date of Christmas. Christmas originally was, I think, springtime or something. It was or fall, or so it was another time, I forget now, but it was in the spring or fall, I think it was the spring. And you can check that out. And then it was much later when the Saturnalia of Rome and the birth of Mithras and Krishna and Apollo and Dionysius and all these superheroes, the sun heroes, the spark in our heart, they were born at solstice to Christmas time, see? And so then the Catholic Church and the authorities of the church moved it to gain some sense of that birth of all the pagan heroes, pagans including the Neoplatonists and Pythagoras and Dionysian, everybody had their celebrations of the birth of the new year during that time. And so you can count this idea of the 12 days of Christmas becomes an interesting phenomena too, if you add the renewal of the physical etheric astro, and then this in the ego, and this kind of like impulse to the 12 days of Christmas being these 12 cosmic spiritual gifts that beautify and initiate each of our egos into this higher trinity that's based on four elements of fire, earth, air, and water. And so then you have this whole experience of Rudolf Steiner's foundation stone meditation as this 3 and 4 part harmony that really hides the 12 in the 4 directions of the angels, the 4 directions with this 3 count, 3 times 4 being 12. Okay, so that's a little bit of Pythagorean mathematics and sacred geometry, and I didn't mean to get lost there, but I do want to say that this comet is going to go through the constellation Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and constellation Butte. I call them the Boot, and then the serpents or Orificus or Epicus, depending on how you say that, in Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Hercules, and standing on the head of the serpent, and Cerberus, Hercules, who can control the 3-headed dog. In my astrology book, Astrological Aspects, the Art, I go into this whole thing about going into the underworld. When you're initiated thrice greatest Hermes, and you're initiated in this higher trinity of threefoldness, you have this ability to be free to move through heaven, earth, and the underworld, which is the hell realms, and that you have to get past the 3-headed dog, which is Cerberus. I talk about that in my astrology book of these the esoteric traditions of Rudolf Steiner and the Foundation Stone in Tibetan Buddhism and Theosophy and Rosicrucian lore, and the sacred Platonic solids, and how the sixth and seventh solid is a sphere or circle, all-encompassing circle with a point, that you have this kind of point that's everywhere and nowhere. The center is everywhere and nowhere. So I really get into this in a really rough way, of course. You could have used a rewrite, but you might want to check it out. It's available used on Amazon, or you can buy it at Mayflower from my website, mayflowerbookshop.com. And I'll probably take another direct hit on that, trying to do that again at some point. So the comet goes through into like the early Capricorn, and right now it's in that Bhuta of the Bhuti, with a spear and the sickle and the two dogs. And so the sickle's cutting off what's not necessary out of your life, and the spear is trying to really be one-pointed with your spiritual practice and your sense of emptiness and wholeness, and creating a mindfulness. And the two dogs are the duality of the thinking, that whenever you think, there's always a debate going on. So I'm thinking that this is an amazing comet. It's going to influence Capricorns, Libra, Aries, and Cancer the most. And there's a whole struggle about trying to find and heal the earth so we have clean air, water, and food. This is really coming into play now, of what, not the homogenization of in this monoculture where one bug can kill the whole culture. I mean, this legalization of marijuana is the downside of Neptune, but also the monoculture and pesticides and growing it with night lights and not getting the sunshine. See, there's a huge problem. I don't smoke. I don't take drugs. But I really am glad that they've legalized it. But it's really important to take a look at our food and look at our world and look at our oceans. I heard there's plastic that's made out of plants and that's recyclable. We need to take a very serious look at this. Instead of having ever building up with nuclear weapons in the military, of course we need to be protected, but we also need to have an educational service of our money to be spent. Some of that military money should be spent for peace. And as an old friend, Marianne Williamson, tries to express very poignantly and well, that we need a Department of Peace. And I think we need a Department of Education of the poor to love the earth and to garden. We should have money for the whole world to garden, rather than that they build up more armaments to protect themselves. We need virtue to protect us. Virtue is the ultimate dharma. Virtue is the ultimate protection. And virtue mind training is the whole of so-called occultism. I mean, the occult is an astronomical word named hidden, but it shouldn't be hidden. It should be virtue mind training. In every religion, we should take the best and leave the rest, and really get on with living the spiritual life and healing this earth. So that's what I have to say. The Capricorns are the leaders of this world, and the leaders of the families, and the leaders of the church, and the scientific communities, and the leaders of the corporation. And they're not going to be able to protect themselves anymore from the ecological disaster that's taking place. And so some people are trying to hide underground or have other places to go, to Mars, to save themselves. They're looking for life on other planets when they haven't really found all the life here. And this is a really critical time in history. And I think this comet may be one of our last chances to save to save the education of our soul and our oversoul. We need the education of the oversoul that can permeate our everyday life. Isaac Newton reinterpreted the Revelation's Apocalypse. And by the way, Revelation Apocalypse writings by H.P. Blavatsky and her writings on St. John's Gospel, as well as Rudolf Steiner's writings on it. They're available at Rudolf Steiner Archives and the Theosophical University online. You can read Isis Unveiled, The Secret Doctrine, and her Key to Theosophy, and The Voice of the Silence. And she has writings on St. John's Gospels and the Apocalypse too. At the end of her life, she was really getting into she had writings called The Esoteric Character of the Gospels, where she really gets into St. John's Gospels that Rudolf Steiner really gets into later. And so there's a lot of similarity in the writing and different diverse ways of expressing it. It's worthy of our looking into it. Each of us is alone. There's nobody coming to help us. They can try to help us, but who's been able to help you? Each of us is alone in our deepest soul. That's deeper than the wound. That's deeper than our ability to think. Each of us is alone. And in our silence, we need to call upon God and the Holy Mother or Mary or whoever you want to call it. In our silence, we need to call upon the highest virtue with our listening heart, with the heart that is capable of seeing the way, and our head and sense-bound thinking, and our action hero and our hands and legs and our will, our upper and lower third need to serve like an altar boy and altar girl, the holy heart. When you see those tarot cards and there's two people in front of some major hero figure, like the high priestess, like the Hierophant, the hero, Phanes, the Hierophant, the high priest. When you see those two below, those two are, like even in the Fool card, the bag behind him and the sun behind him and the abyss in front of him, the whole of the world in front of him. Those two are the upper and lower third of our body that needs to unite with our heart of stillness and holiness and purification and offering and sacrifice of dumb desire and dumb fears. That we can listen in our heart to something new that's coming in. And this Comet Leonard, the art of the Leo heart. In our hard times, we need heart. So each of us is alone to call upon our highest and our deepest, to awaken within our heart so that only each individual can awaken within themselves something that will be more co-creative and that can see the stillness and hear the stillness within others, that we can see the suffering and we can invoke compassion and a will to stay in the learning with Michaelic courage. The word Michael is in my astrology book. I talk about the Archangel Michael, that you spell alchemy. If you had alchemy with an I instead of a Y, which is a total Kabbalistic thing to do, gematria, Pythagorean way of looking at it, Michael spells alchemy. Michael spells alchemy. We need the alchemy of the heart to transform darkness into light and light into practical workings of our everyday. Om Mane Padme Hum, a wonderful mantra from ancient India and probably from Atlantis. Even Rudolf Steiner mentions it at times. Om being the Christ or the I am, the Christos, the Hermes, the hero. Mane is the spiritual thinking and virtuous mind. Padme is the heart, flowering with intelligence and loving kindness, a warm heart. And Hum, may we heal this planet. May we have compassion for ourselves and how hard we've tried. May we enter into a new day every day to try again. Bless your hearts, bless your garden of friends. Bless the truth and loving kindness. May your heart be on fire to be a wonder and miracle for all life. Mayflowerbookshop.com. I'll talk to you again soon.